on the DVD, we did a complete rivalry recap between Jim Cornette and Bullet Bob since August of 1992. And the reason why I did that was because with the Legends ceremony and the card that I didn't want to cut, they had said, Jim, we're going to have to do a two VHS set because you could only get 2 hours per tape max at that point, right? And I said, well, fuck, we got an extra hour to play with. Let's just do this. And we recapped. So if you watch the show, which is what I wanted to happen, if you watched the DVD or you bought the tape at the time, you understood the rivalry between me and Bullet Bob Armstrong that had been intended all along, that for 2.5 years I'd booked this to come to a point like this. We'd had our peaks and valleys and our confrontations. He put me in a hospital. I put him in a hospital. He put me in a hospital. Then I brought Terry Funk back to get even. Then they had a Texas death match that Bullet Bob won, and blah, blah, blah. So this recap goes for a while and gives you a good look at Smoky Mountain's TV angles and some of the big show matches. It was the Fantastics and Heavenly Bodies in a Cage. It was the promo between me and Bullet Bob where I come out knocking Bullet. And I'll tell you who's, not only is all of the Smoky Mountain Wrestling wrestlers and the fans ashamed of this idiot as commissioner, but even his own family's ashamed of him. I did the promo where I said Dixie Dynamite. I revealed that Dixie Dynamite was Scott Armstrong.
With a sock on his head.
Yeah, with a sock on his head, and he wears a mask because he's ashamed of his father. And then Scott comes out and unmasks himself voluntarily and cuts that promo where he says, I didn't want to be favored as daddy's boy. I didn't want to trade off my father's name. I hid my face, not because I'm ashamed of my father, but because I love my father. And then here comes Bullet Bob out, and he's fucking jerking his clip-on tie off. And he's like, you got something to say to me? Say it to me. And we wear each other out verbally, and then I go too far, and he knocks me fucking goofy as he's turning to walk off just like Bill Watts. Except, boom, instead of slapping me, he punched me in the head. Then we showed the Rage in the Cage match where we sent Bob to the hospital after we crucified him, handcuffed to the cage, and I cracked his sternum and hit him 18 million times with the racket. And then we show the clip where he gives me the 2 pile drivers who got juice on me and sent me to the hospital in Knoxville when Boss Man was the referee. And then where Terry Funk came into Knoxville and beat Bullet Bob with help from the branding iron, and then the rematch, the Texas death match, the first time Terry did a fucking moonsault. And he was supposed to miss Bullet, but he didn't go far enough because he didn't know how far he could go, so he went ahead and pinned Bullet anyway. Because Bullet rolled in and Terry landed on his back. But he had never done a moonsault, so I didn't expect him to do a moonsault. I leaned in, and on a pile of chairs, right, that he'd thrown in the middle of the ring. I said, Terry, what are you doing? He said, I don't know, corny. And then, the clip from where, and see it, Dory was coming in. Dory Funk was coming in for a lot of this stuff also, so he does run-ins on some of these things, including the match Bruiser Bedlam versus Randy Savage. I'm in Bruiser's corner. Tracy Smothers comes out to help Savage. And where else did you think about this? I'm seeing Randy Savage fucking trading right hands with Dory Funk Jr. And I'm thinking, is that the only place that would have ever happened? Can you think of another?
Interesting. I mean, unless it was during his period as Randy Poffo in Georgia before he became Savage.
Okay, so that ain't Randy Savage.
No, actually, I guess not.
Well, then I promoted the only event ever where Randy Savage and Dory Funk Jr. kicked the shit out of each other. And then we did show the matches with Dory and Terry Funk with me against Scott and Steve with Bullet in the corner. And then Tracy Smothers gets Bruiser Bedlam where Bullet and the Funks and everybody gets involved. And then here was one. There was an angle we did one time leading up. No, it wasn't one time. It was leading up to this fucking match. It was leading up to the Night of Legends. We had Tracy Smothers against Killer Kyle. And then we have a bench clear where one after another, every heel and every babyface comes out. And you're either fucking on the heel side or you're on the babyface side. And everybody's fighting inside the ring, outside the ring. Bullet had gotten knocked down and got juice. And he's bleeding. And finally, he rolls out of the ring and waves it off and says, fuck it. And the announcer's like, my God, Bullet Bob's leaving. Where's he going in this chaos? He comes out. I had wanted him to make a big comeback, right? That everything went according to plan until this. But Bullet usually, if he made a big comeback, he used a baseball bat. And I said, boy, I really want you to wear these motherfuckers out. Just make your own comeback. But we were in a school, and in the locker room, there was a black wiffle ball bat that you couldn't tell from 6 or 7 feet away it was plastic, but you couldn't tell. And we put some white tape around it like you would if it was a bat being used in batting practice. I said, make the comeback with this and just lay waste to everybody, right? Which he did. But then as he's in there bleeding and he's cutting his fired up promo and it's the last go home for the Night of Legends, the bat bent. So as he's shaking it, you can see that the top foot bent just a bit. And it wasn't real obvious. If you weren't looking for it, you might not see it. But now that I've called attention to it, but I was like, oh, fuck. But anyway, then I do a promo about the match, and then the Bullet and Tracy introduce the mystery partner who was Road Warrior Hawk. And we do promos from the teams. And basically, Bullet Bob Armstrong has resigned as commissioner to get back in the ring. He's joined Tracy Smothers, the wild-eyed Southern boy, who's our top baby face. And to defeat my evil minions of the Funk Brothers and Bruiser Bedlam, he has brought in the one guy that sent me to the hospital in my career, the fucking Road Warrior Hawk from the scaffold match. He's got Cornette's number. And it's going to be a coward waves the flag match where the only way to win is to force your opponent to wave his white flag of surrender. I'm holding the flag for the Funks and Bruiser Bedlam. Guess who's holding the flag for Bullet Bob, Road Warrior Hawk, and Tracy Smothers? None other than the meanest, toughest, orneriest, most no good, dirty, stinking SOB that ever wrestled in East Tennessee, the number one hillbilly, the king of Kingsport, old brother Ron himself, Ron Wright. And Ron had been cutting a promo, said, I don't care if a man's leg is hanging off. I don't care if a man's head's busted open. I don't care if a man's bleeding and his bones are broken. I ain't going to wave that flag. And when he said it, everybody knew. Well, we've seen fucking over the past 30 years, we've seen Ron Wright with his eyes swollen shut and blood coming out and scars and stitches on TV and all these pictures and things. He ain't going to goddamn wave this flag. And there's our main event. And it was old-fashioned Southern wrestling chaos from the start. They jump each other. I mean, the Funks ain't going to fucking stay in the ring very often. They jump-started it. They fucking fought wild. Then finally, we settle it down. We get some heat on Tracy. He's the only other guy that bled that night besides Jericho, and we got just enough juice to be able to halfway beat him to death, but Ron won't wave the flag. And then finally, the tag's made, the comeback, it's a 6-way, whatever the fuck. I go around, and I'd seen this. This was done. Who the fuck did this first? The coward waves the flag match comes from, at least from Dick the Bruiser in my mind, because we saw those with them and the Legionnaires, Jacques Goulet and Don Fargo in the 70s in Indianapolis. But I think the first person to do this finish may have been in Tennessee somewhere, maybe at the other end in Memphis. But anyway, I go over, throw powder in Ron Wright's eyes so he's blind and grab his flag. While he's staggered away to clear his eyes, I get down below the ring apron and stick the flag up, and I'm waving the flag in the babyface's corner. So if the referee turns around and sees it, then he will immediately call for the bell. All the fans know this, but the referee hadn't turned around and seen it yet. But Ron gets his eyes clear. And Ron then snatches me, and oh shit, and I shit myself, and he punches me. And I go down still holding that fucking flag, and I'm still in the babyface's corner. And as I get up to my feet, here comes Ron Wright to fucking murder me. And I take the flag and I swing it at him. And he backs up and I swing again, and I'm fending Ron off with this flag. And the referee turns around and sees me waving the fucking flag, and my guys lose. And the people once again go fucking crazy. And then we wanted some way to go off with a bang, right? And I don't remember whose idea this was, but I went along with it if it wasn't mine. I should have known because it involved me having to be fucking nimble on my feet. But the idea was that Ron would then roll me into the ring, and all of my heels who had bailed out on the floor on the other side would come in to try to help me, and Hawk would pick me up by the neck and give me the hangman and then fucking drop me to the baby faces, right? Well, when Hawk grabs me, he starts picking me up without giving me a chance to jump, because I guess he thought he could do it, but he underestimated the weight of my bliffed ass. So he got me halfway up there for a while and then threw me down. But they grabbed me as the heels are coming in. They're going to shoot me off. And as they shoot me toward the fucking heels, I'm supposed to jump and kind of cross-body all the heels. They'll catch me and everybody will fall down. Well, fuck, from where the heels were to where I started, I had like fucking 9 feet head start to begin with, to running start, jump, and leap, right? So I kind of cross-bodied Bruiser. A little of my head hit Terry, and I think Dory kind of picked my legs up off the ground. But it was not exactly a death-defying fucking bump. But I take the bump into the heels and we all roll out, and then people fucking screamed and yelled and cheered because everybody was happy because the baby faces won. So it doesn't need to be a good match because the baby faces won. That's what you pay to see. And then, unfortunately, on the video, I did a Glory Days video to the Springsteen Glory Days, but it's dubbed over on the DVD, and because they get so shitty about commercial music these days. But that was the Coward Waves the Flag match. And that also may have been, when you think about it, that's the only time that Road Warrior Hawk would have ever been involved in a match with Ron Wright.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not even going to bother guessing at that. There's not a single place they would have been before that. Unless Doug Ward put them both on a show after the fact.
Well, after the fact. But, I mean, and once again, that's what I used to like about Japanese wrestling, when you'd get the tapes and you'd see matches that could never take place in this country, like Nick Bockwinkel versus Ricky Steamboat or whatever, because they were in different territories. But we brought everybody together for the big night of legends. What was that? That was the first time. Was that the first time you had seen the Funk Brothers live?
That was the first time I had seen the Funk Brothers live, yes.
What did you think there?
Well, Terry. I mean, I was a massive Terry Funk fan. He was already one of my favorites. He was just at another level at this period of time. He was doing that great stuff in ECW. At the same time, he's doing that great stuff at Smoky Mountain. He's appearing on WCW TV. Great promos. I remember the promo we did on TV. It may have been the week before Knoxville, or it may have been the day of, because we may have seen it in the hotel in Knoxville, where he's like, Bob, Brad, Bill, all the illegitimate Armstrong kids, running down the list of all the illegitimate Armstrongs. Seeing him was great. Dory is Dory. Dory was good, but seeing him was great. It was still a big deal to see Road Warrior Hawk live.
Yeah.
There was still a little bit of the aura around the Road Warriors at that period of time.
And the thing with Dory is also, he has suffered by comparison, because with modern audiences, when you stand Dory beside Terry, it's like, which one are you going to watch? You're going to watch the quiet guy, or you're going to watch the guy with the chainsaw, over his head and fucking screaming at the top of his lungs. But for historical purposes, when you think to be able to say you've seen the Funk Brothers live in person as a tag team, that was a big deal for me. When the first time I actually got to see the Funks live together was in 1981, when they both came into Memphis, and the match was Jerry Lawler and Jack Briscoe versus Dory Funk Jr. and Terry Funk.
I actually just found the programs, one from Evansville and one, they were the same programs with the inserts from that period of time. Yeah, 81.
And see, that's the way Dory in this kind of match didn't fit. The way you needed to see Dory in his natural habitat was against Jack Briscoe. Because that was the first time I'd seen Dory Funk Jr. live, and I could see him against Jack Briscoe, which blows my mind anyway. But that was the gold standard. In 1972, Dory Funk Jr. and Jack Briscoe was the same thing that 1989 Ric Flair and Ricky Steamboat was, and the same, a modern day equivalent. I've said one time Tyler Black and Davey Richards in Ring of Honor in 2010, that year was like a modern day equivalent of that. But for historical purposes. And the thing is, Marty came up to me one time. She always take pictures when her boys would come up. I had booked the Funk Brothers in tag team matches against the Armstrong Brothers. And they enjoyed them and they had fun. And, and here's not only the Armstrongs are thrilled to be working with the Funks that, their father was a contemporary of and that they have so much respect for, but also they brought such good stuff out in Scott and Steve as a babyface brother tag team having to fight against these fucking heels. But Marty shows me shots of they've got holes and they're doing moves and there's drop kick. And then she says, here's what my boys do when they go to ECW. And there's Terry wrapped up in barbed wire, covered in blood from head to toe while Dory's trying to cut him out with wire cutters. And she said, I don't know about them, but I sure enjoy our trips to Knoxville more. Anyway. But therein you have 25 years later. So basically for everybody that thinks that I just think that everything old is great and that everything new sucks. No, I've put some stuff that's new over the past couple weeks, and I've also just illustrated a few things that sucked. And by the way, Great American Bash 89, the Dynamic Dudes versus the Skyscrapers, that match still hurts my fucking feelings. It never should have even taken place. Good God. That was the worst fucking 80s match I've ever seen from a major company. So, yes, I do knock old shit.
Yeah, where did that come from?
Because I just watched the 89 Bash for that Fighting Spirit magazine column, and that match, still the stench of it, I can't get off of me. That was the worst match.
I like that match better than the Brian Pillman, Bill Irwin match just because of the spectacle of the fans reacting to Sid.
Well, it was a spectacle, all right, but as a matter of fact, they fell into a glass grinding machine and made a spectacle of themselves. All right, anyway.